organized by fields, records, and files, and a database can store thousands of records. Most people do not access a database directly. Instead, they would use a database management system, which accesses it indirectly. A database management system is a collection of programs that enables you to enter, organize, and select data in a database. If a database contains thousands of records with many fields per record, it would even take a fast computer a significant amount of time to search through a table and retrieve the requested data, which is where you would use an index. An index is a data structure that improves the speed of data retrieval operations on a database table. The disadvantage of using indexes is that they need to be created and updated, which requires processing resources and takes up a lot of disk space. There are three main types of databases: flat type, hierarchical, and relational. And each database type has its own important design features. Flat type databases are simplistic in design. They are considered flat because they are two-dimensional tables consisting of rows and columns. Each column can be referred to as a field, and each row can be referred to as a record. A hierarchical database is similar to a tree structure. In this database, each parent table can have multiple children, but each child can only have one parent. A spreadsheet is usually the starting point for creating a database. With a spreadsheet, it's easy to create headings and start entering data. Adding, deleting, reordering, and formatting headings is simple, and you can easily sort the data under one or more headings. It's also easy to insert, delete, and filter rows matching one or more patterns. Three fundamental characteristics of databases are: 1, they are designed to store billions of rows of data. 2, they are limited to the computer's available hard disk space. And 3, they are optimized to use all the computer's available memory to improve its performance. Columns marked as foreign keys can contain null values. This is not a desirable standard of practice. However, because it may be impossible to verify the constraints if a foreign key consists of 2 or more columns and contains null values, this means the integrity of your data cannot be guaranteed. Transact SQL is the primary means of programming and managing an SQL server. It exposes keywords so that you can create and manage databases and their components and monitor and manage the server itself. When you use SSMS to perform an action or task, you are executing Transact SQL statements. DML, or Data Manipulation Language, is the language element that allows you to use the core statements insert, update, delete, and merge to manipulate data in any SQL Server tables. Some core DML statements include select, which retrieves rows from the database and enables the selection of one or many rows or columns from one or more tables in an SQL Server. Insert, which adds one or more new rows to a table or view in SQL Server. Update, which changes existing data in one or more columns in a table or view. Delete, which removes rows from a table or view. And merge, which performs insert, update, or delete operations on a target table based on the results of a join with a source table. DDL, or Data Definition Language, is a subset of the Transact SQL language. It deals with creating database objects like tables, constraints, and stored procedures. The interface used to create these underlying DDL statements is the SSMS user interface. Some DDL statements include use, which changes the database context; create, which creates an SQL Server database object, table, view, or stored procedure; alter, which changes an existing object; drop, which removes an object from the table, truncate, which removes rows from a table and frees the space used by those rows, and delete, which removes rows from a table but does not free the space used by those rows removed. A data type is an attribute that specifies the type of data an object can hold, as well as how many bytes each data type takes up. For example, several data types handle only whole numbers, which makes them good for counting or for identification. Other data types allow decimal numbers and therefore come in handy when storing values dealing with money. Still, other data types are designed to store strings or multiple characters so that you can define labels, descriptions, and comments. Microsoft SQL Server's built-in data types are organized into categories. These categories are exact numbers, approximate numbers, date and time, character strings, Unicode character strings, binary strings, other data types, CLR data types, and spatial data types. The integer numeric data type is used to store mathematical computations and is employed when you do not require a decimal point output. The varchar data type is commonly used in databases that support English attributes. The Boolean data type converts true and false string values to bit values, with true converted to 1 and false converted to 0. And the float numeric data type is an approximation, which means that not all values within the data type range will be represented exactly. The three types of character strings are char, varchar, and text. Char is a character data type with fixed length. Varchar is a character data type with variable length. And text will be removed in future SQL releases, so now it is used as varchar max instead. Remember that some of these data types only allow whole numbers, whereas others allow decimal numbers. The date and time data types deal, obviously, with dates and times. These data types include date, date time 2, date time offset, small date time, and just time. These data types all use the Gregorian calendar, and last, it does not use daylight savings time. When working with SQL data, you may wish to convert values from one data type to another. In most situations, these conversions are done automatically. When a conversion is done automatically, it is called an implicit conversion. The purpose of a table is to provide a structure for storing data within a relational database. Without this structure, there is an increased probability of database failure. A view simply is a virtual table which consists of different columns from one or more tables. Unlike a table, a view is stored in a database as a query object. Also, a view is meant to be a security mechanism. That is, a view ensures that users can retrieve and modify only the data seen by them through their permissions. This ensures they cannot see or access the remaining data in the underlying tables. A stored procedure is a previously written SQL statement that has been stored or saved into a database. One way to save time when running the same query over and over again is to create a stored procedure that you can then execute within the database's command environment. In short, a SQL injection is an attack in which malicious code is inserted into strings that are later passed onto instances of SQL Server waiting for parsing and execution. Any procedure that constructs SQL statements should be reviewed continually for injection vulnerabilities because SQL Server will execute all syntactically valid queries from any source. How to form a proper select query involves three main things. you need to know the columns you want to retrieve, the tables to retrieve the columns from, and conditions, if any, that the data must satisfy. To help resolve the awkwardness in the AND clause, you would use the between clause. This allows you to specify the range to be used in a between X and Y query format, yielding a much cleaner statement. In some instances, it is simpler to write your query in terms of what you don't want in your output, in which case you would use the not clause. The union clause allows you to combine the results of two or more queries into a resulting single set that includes all the rows belonging to the query in that union. A couple of basic rules when combining the results of two queries using the union clause are: the number and order of the columns must be the same in each of the queries in the clause, and the data types you use must be compatible. Both the except and the intersect statements are designed to return distinct values by comparing the results of two queries. The except clause gives you the final result set where data exists in the first query and not in the second data set, while the intersect clause gives you the final result set where values in both of the queries matched by the query on both the left and right sides of the operand. The join clause allows you to combine related data from multiple table sources. Join statements can be specified in either the from or the where clause, but it is recommended that you specify them in the from clause. There are three types of join statements you should be aware of. Inner joins, which allow you to match related records taken from different source tables. Outer joins, which can include records from one or more tables you're querying that do not have corresponding records in the other table. And cross joins, which return all rows from one table along with all rows from the other table. Where conditions should always be included. Yeah, that's all. To insert data, there are 5 checks that you need to have. 1, check that you have connected to the database you want to work with. 2, expand the databases folder by clicking the plus icon beside the word databases. 3, then expand the folder of the database you want to modify. Then 4, expand the tables folder by clicking on the plus sign next to the word tables. And 5, right-click the table name and choose Edit Top 200 Rows. And lastly, enter your data into the last row of the table for that data to be considered new. The last row of the table will have the value null in each of the columns. The update clause allows you to modify data stored in tables using data attributes, such as updating the table name. You can use the delete statement to remove one or more rows in a table or a view. Using the truncate table statement deletes all rows from a particular table. Using a delete statement would produce the same output, but could take a great deal of time if you're deleting rows from a very large database. So the truncate table in that situation would be the better option. The drop table statement removes an entire table because it is obsolete. One of the most important steps in planning a database, creating tables, manipulating data, and so forth, is setting up a proper security model, of which referential integrity forms a part. Referential integrity does not allow deletion of tables unless all of the related tables are deleted using a cascading delete. The best way to keep data from being accidentally deleted, truncated, or updated during regular maintenance tasks is using a transaction. Inserting a simple begin tran before an actual SQL statement is a good place to start, and if you have executed everything correctly, a commit statement is issued from SQL. If there is an error in any of the statements, a rollback is issued from SQL.